to share the screen and present it. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your introduction. And I'm very grateful to you for providing this opportunity where I can share my research that we did before on topic which is a little bit different from, I would say, conventional geotechnical engineering, as we involve a lot of study using plant physiology, I would say. And in this topic particularly, we look into how we can relate unsaturated soil mechanics, like some of the basics of unsaturated soil mechanics, like water retention, how it can be related to the plant wilting. So when I talk about plant wilting, it means I mean, some of you may not be aware of this word wilting. Wilting is similar to, we say, when plants tends to die. Okay, so when usually, if you have noticed in your gardens or around your place, when there is less water, the plant leaves change its color. It may change its color from green to pale green or pale yellow. Sometimes it's related to their nature of semi evergreen, or not evergreen, semi deciduous nature of the trees. But sometimes it's related to the stress they are feeling from the water, lack of water or lack of sunlight. So I will cover all these things there, but I will try to explain it also from more simpler way, like from human health point of view, because when we look at plants, how they behave in the soil, the behavior actually can be related to human health. And before that, I'll give you a brief introduction about our university. So I think Professor Krishna Reddy sir correctly pronounced his name. It's Xi'an Jiaotong-Liverpool University. So you might have heard about Liverpool University. So it's actually a joint collaboration between two universities. So I'll give you a brief idea about university a bit, because if you have any plan to come to China in future, you're most welcome to contact me, and we can definitely work out some lecture or seminar. So since I also come from India, and if you look at the location of Suzhou, just to give, this university is located in Suzhou. Okay, so this is the location of the university, and this is actually very close to Shanghai. So if you take around 2 hours from university, you can easily reach Shanghai airport in 2 hours, and also in the Shanghai city. And it's also close to Hangzhou. Hangzhou is also around 2 hours. So we call this belt of Suzhou, Hangzhou, and Shanghai. There are 3 cities. I think I met Professor Krishna Reddy sir in Hangzhou in 2018. I remember sir gave a keynote lecture in a conference here in Hangzhou. So actually, these 3 places are very close to each other, around 2 hours by distance, by drive. And these 3 are highly industrialized areas, with Shanghai is famous for, I think, manufacturing of Tesla. I mean, more than 60% of Teslas come from Shanghai in the world. Hangzhou is recently, I think, we might have heard about DeepSeek AI app, which actually comes from Hangzhou. And Suzhou is famous for more than 500 German companies. So there are many German companies and also pharmaceutical companies which are located in Suzhou. So it's a highly industrialized area and highly international. So our university is a joint collaboration between Xi'an Jiaotong University and Liverpool University, UK. It's a very special university, a special collaboration, because we are not a campus of Liverpool University, but rather we are an independent university with programs accredited from Liverpool University, UK. So all the undergraduate programs and also the postgraduate programs, the degrees comes from Liverpool University, UK. But the functioning of university is more or less independent from Liverpool University, as we function in our own way. So it's a complete English medium instruction. We follow the regulations of Ministry of Education of UK, and as well as the Education Ministry of China. And we have more than 26,000 students. Right now, the plan is to make it 35,000 students by next year. So there are 2 big campuses, The one campus is in Suzhou Industrial Park, where I am working right now. It's a main campus. And we have one more campus. This is also very big campus, which recently opened, I think, few years before. It's in Taichung. It's also located very close to Suzhou, maybe around 1 hour. And this campus is mostly focused on many programs related to entrepreneurship and industrial. So it includes intelligent manufacturing, more close to industry-oriented courses and programs. So that's it also a very big and brand new campus. So, so in this way, and just to give you an idea, in Suzhou, we have actually met not just our university, but we also have other international campuses, like from Monash University. It's located very next to our university. They have a research institute with Southeast University of China. We also have a research institute from NUS Singapore. And we also have one more university, we call it Duke Kunshan University campus. It's an American university, Duke University. They also have a joint campus here in Suzhou. So Suzhou is quite international in a way. So, and also it's considered among, I think, for Chinese people, or if you have come to Suzhou before, it's considered one of the most beautiful city in China. So you're welcome to visit Suzhou. It's very close to Shanghai. Yeah. And in the School of Science, as I said, we are a special university in China. We have a lot of foreign faculties which are full-time employed here in School of Science. So I'm not talking about other schools like School of Engineering or Business School, but I'm only talking about School of Science. So we have diverse faculty, especially in international, which are full-time employed here. So they are fully time working here. They're not like part-time working here or associated with Liverpool University. So they full-time work here. And one of the achievements of our undergraduate students is when they graduate from with bachelor degree from our university. I mean, the degree anyway comes from Liverpool University, UK. It's the same degree. So they get admissions in masters. Around 66% of students get in top 10 universities of the world. So this is the data from the last year. And we have a lot of international students as well from around the world. Like these are full-time students, not exchange students. And they come from Indonesia, Britain, Italy, America, France, South Korea, Russia. So you can see it's also include from Asia, Europe, and also in America. And just to give you an idea, if there are scholars who are there, if your research students want to visit our university, we have an open policy of visiting research student. If you have a collaborator in this university, you can send student for exchange for research. It can be for 1 month to 1 year, but the funding need to be managed. The university will help to apply the registration, and also there is no registration fee as such for research exchange. And university will help to provide visa and other things for the student, and also help in accommodation and access to labs, and everything will be covered freely. The only part is the student have to manage their own stay, or professor can provide them funding from their project. But this is an open policy which is open to all students, irrespective of any kind of agreements for research purpose. But yes, if student is interested to enroll some courses, then an agreement is required. So I also invite students from other countries, especially from IITs in India. My former students have been coming here to China since 2017. And I mean, some of them have graduated and also now working in different countries. So coming to the topic, so first I will give you an idea about why we need resilient green infrastructure. And then I will give an overview of my 3 research directions. And then I will go into detail of the topic, which I will discuss about plant wilting. So overall, I work on 3 different topics. So one of them is I tend to study or develop new kind of biochars. I think Professor Krishna Reddy sir have been pioneer in this area of designing biochars for geoenvironmental engineering. So I also work in this area where we develop new biochars and also try to enhance, look into how they can affect unsaturated soil properties. And we also modify biochars in our lab using acid or base treatment, and also advanced functional treatment. to increase its functionality. Second is we also worked on monitoring of green infrastructure, where we look into how some of the natural processes which can happen to trees, for example, the termite infestation. We might have seen in especially rainy areas, or even in our homes also, we have seen sometimes some wood can catch this kind of termites. So trees also can catch. So, but the effect of the trees, termite, how it affect our soil water dynamics, and how further it can have implication on slope stability, it was looked into. And the third one is the one which I will discuss in detail. Is about a new framework for defining wilting point. So actually this idea originally was taken, or you can say was started in agriculture area. Actually, when we look into the history of unsaturated soil mechanics, a lot of our principles were derived from hydrology or soil science. But later on, it was diverged. Our unsaturated soil mechanics, we went more into geotechnical engineering application, and agriculture went into another direction. But there is a lack of integration of unsaturated soil mechanics when we try to apply in agriculture principle, especially how to define wilting point, means how to define a point where a plant will tend to die, okay, in simple terms. Or a point at where plant will tend to stop taking any water from the soil. So that point, we call it wilting point. So usually you can expect this wilting point will occur when the soil is very dry, right? But at what point, that's very important, because when we choose our vegetation, especially from engineering point of view, when we choose any vegetation for any slope, man-made slopes, we need to look into how this vegetation will perform in extreme dry seasons, which is highly likely to occur in under context of climate change. And their survival will be very crucial, because if the trees become dead, there is high likely, which will cause a lot of increase in macroporosity, which can further increase infiltration of water and can cause some instability in the slopes. So that's why it's very important from maintenance point of view for long term, how we can access or compare survival rate, I would say in simple terms, between two plants. Suppose if we have to decide between two plants, which plants we have to choose. So we can decide based on this kind of framework. So we have developed this framework, which I will discuss in detail. So I would like to acknowledge the project grants which I have received in China, from national grant in youth grant, and also an international grant. It's jointly with Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. There's Professor Anthony Leong, and also in Harbin, Shenzhen, there's Professor Chandri. We are working together on this topic. And also acknowledge my collaborators who worked on this particular project. Professor Shridi from IIT Guwahati, Professor Sahu, he is an expert in bioscience, who actually provided a lot of expertise and also instrumentation for measuring plant health parameters. So with the civil engineering background, we may not have this direct understanding of how we can deeply understand the plant health parameters. So it was very important to collaborate with an expert from bioscience department. And also my former PhD student, he's now assistant professor in Aalto University, Finland. He also visited China for 6 months exchange, during which he did some experiments. So the need for resilient green infrastructure, I think we all know that there is a issue of climate change, which can make our climate more warmer, or which can increase the temperature, global temperature to a certain extent, and which will also have influence on our, drying wetting cycles, or when we talk about rainfall patterns, which can have a change in both summer and winter. So overall, it will affect our water balance, and water balance also affect our temperature around surroundings, and also our living standards. So in order to tackle this, there is definitely a need of green infrastructure. I think in United States, it has been quite established. There are a lot of green infrastructure in different places. if you're in US, I think it's quite common. The use of permeable pavements, gardens, biofiltration units. The main purpose is not just to absorb the water, excess water, but also to filter some of the contaminants from the water. So depending on the type of green infrastructure. So these are the potential components of green infrastructure, which includes a green roof, farming, reed bed, green wall. But apart from that, in geotechnical engineering, we also consider about slope stability. Okay. So from engineering point of view, one of the main reason for vegetation use is like if we can consider it for stabilizing slopes. Now for man-made slopes, from design point of view, there is no such guideline right now, which decide that, okay, we have to choose this kind of vegetation for our slopes. And in literature, most of the researchers, they've mostly focused on the mechanical reinforcement effects of the plants. There have been studies a lot now from understanding the root water uptake and how it affects soil moisture and soil suction, soil metric potential. However, when we have to think about the long-term performance of plant on the slope, we have to consider its survival during the extreme seasons, especially in the dry season. It's just like if we have to think about human being as a health, we have also need to consider, when a human, I mean, sometimes we go to doctor, they also do our tests, right? They can do our stress test on us to check how our body performs under extreme stress conditions sometimes. So they have this kind of test. So similarly, the test that we did on the plant is to check how it will survive under extreme dry conditions and how to monitor its health using unsaturated soil mechanics principles. That's the main idea of this work. Because we can plant in the beginning, it may work well, but in the long term, how it will perform, for that we need to understand its health conditions with respect to soil parameters. So for the maintenance of green infrastructure is very vital for water balance and also its performance using during the wet season when there is flooding. And vegetation form a very integral part of the green infrastructure. Okay. And it's important to select suitable vegetation, which can survive long dry climate. And wilting point is one of the important points in it, where plants stop to take root water uptake. When plants stop to take root water uptake, it also means plant will not make any more food or glucose. I think we all studied in our high school usually that there's a process called photosynthesis through which they make their food. It's just like human being. We also digest our food inside, although we artificially prepare food outside and then we digest it inside. So when we digest our food, we also give nutrition to our body to perform our functions, right? So wilting point means if the plant don't take enough water, the food preparation process inside, the energy within the plant will reduce. So it means the plant cannot function well. It's similar to the way we understand human beings. So that's why we need to understand how external environment like soil conditions or lighting conditions, or you can say atmosphere temperature, how it influences plant behavior. Now in literature, very interestingly, it came from agriculture, this number, 1500 kilopascal. They think at 1500 kilopascal of soil metric potential or soil suction, the plant will stop taking any water. It's very interesting because this number, actually, when I check in literature carefully, it came from 1978 literature. And the scholar who published this paper, they did not measure soil metric potential. They actually were from agriculture, and in that time they don't have the measurements or equipments to measure that kind of suction at a very high suction. So they use some average gravimetric water content, and they convert it to soil metric potential using a known soil water characteristic curve. So if you understand unsaturated soil mechanics, soil water characteristic curve is kind of a relationship between soil moisture and soil suction. So they use this curve, which was already based in literature, to deduce this number, 1500 kilo. And then this number became I mean, interesting, so magical that many people are adopting this number directly, irrespective of vegetation type or soil type. Now, just by common intuition also, we can understand, I mean, our survival rate between human beings are not same. I mean, some people can survive without water for 2 days. Some people can survive without food for 5 days. Some can survive without food for 7 days, right? Similarly, in plants also, they have their own capacity. It's not just different plants, but even within the same plant, there can be differences. So this number, which was adapted in literature, most of the literature, is so permanent wilting point was used to access the plant resistance against abiotic growth stress. So this, if you, we don't need to worry about this wording. So this is literature. This is written more from agriculture point of view, but in very simple terms, physically it means when we give any kind of water stress to plant, means when we reduce the water in the soil, we are actually giving stress to plant. It's similar stress like we can give to human being. We say, like, sometimes people don't like to drink water. You know, they may be protesting against something. So it's that kind of stress, water stress. So similarly, we can give water stress to plant if plant is not having enough water in the soil. And during that time, this is the number which was taken. And this number was taken from in previous water retention curve. And determining of wilting point based on this kind of suction value may not represent the true condition. And actually, we tested this. So this is the hypothesis based on the literature. So this number here, the number peak, so this is the reduction factor of root water uptake and pressure head. So this pressure head is same as soil suction. Actually, these are terminologies written in two different disciplines. So when we read our textbooks, even for students, they should not be confused when they read different terminologies. So pressure head physically means same as soil metric suction, or you can say soil suction, if you assume osmotic suction is not there. So the meaning is same physically, but the representation of the units are different. So in unsaturated soil mechanics, we often use volumetric water content and metric suction to define our SWCC, or you can also use total suction if we have measurement of osmotic suction. But this number means that beyond this value of soil suction, or when soil becomes very dry, okay, so so this side is the drier side, okay? So this side is the drier side. So when the soil becomes dry, so at this value, you can see there is a drop in the root water uptake, very sudden drop. Now we have to check whether this number is true or not, or how to quantify this number. During my PhD, I also did some experiments on species which is actually grown present on the slopes. Now, as I told you, this number was taken by agriculture for crop species, okay? But there is study that somebody did experiment in 2000 for potato crops whose wilting point is actually very low. It's around 78 kilopascal. Okay, they did not mention even the soil grain size distribution, because in agriculture, if you read their papers, they usually rarely quantify grain size distribution and also the compaction degree. But in engineering, when I did this experiment, so in our case, I found that at suction of 210 kilopascal, beyond that, it's very difficult to measure this transpiration rate. So this was almost the reduction of root water uptake or transpiration reduced from 1 to almost 0.4. Okay, so it's almost becoming very less. So it means that this number is much lower than the 1500 kilopascal. And we try to understand its implication for slopes. The species which I tested, the plant which I tested is actually grown on the slope. So it makes sense. It means if on the slope, if your suction in the soil increased to 210 kilopascal or something, the plant will not take enough water. It means plant will not lose enough water, transpiration rate. So it means that plant want to retain more water to prepare food. Okay. So it means plants also have a regulation functions where if they sense that the water is not enough in the soil, they don't want to lose enough water through transpiration. They like to keep more water within themselves in the leaves so that they can make more food in future. So this is similar to human being. Like if I say, if I know that for next 3 days we will not have enough water, then we change our mindset. We will try to save water to prepare food. We will try to save water for shower or other things. Similarly, plants are also very clever. They are much more clever than us, maybe, because they are doing everything naturally, and they don't have external help as such. So if they sense that the water is less in the soil or becoming less, they will start regulating their function in the leaves. We call it stomatal function, to prevent the loss of moisture to the atmosphere, so that they can keep enough water in their leaves to prepare food, to get energy. So we tested this whole hypothesis in terms of mechanism on a native plant species to Southeast Asia. We call it's a grass, Exnopus compress. And we introduced a new framework determining wilting point by integrating plant leaf response and photosynthesis parameters. And one of the main contribution is to establish relationship between soil suction and plant leaf parameters. Now, this is a very important slide. It gives mechanisms which are already well established in literature for plant stomatal conductance. Okay, stomatal conductance defined as the ease at which the plant will lose water, leaves will lose water to the atmosphere. It's quite similar to permeability of soil. In permeability is the rate of flow of water in the soil. It depends on the porosity of the soil. But here, stomatal conductance depends on the porosity of the leaves. So we define it using this stomatal conductance. Okay. So I think we might have read in our high school textbook sometimes, or in our basic biology chapters, where they talk about how stomatal actually is they regulate stomata based on how much water is there in the soil. As I told you, if the water is less in the soil, they will like to close their stomata, not allow to lose water. But when they close their stomata, there is also one problem, is the intake of carbon dioxide also reduce, which is required to make photosynthesis. So plant have to really fight with itself, whether I should lose more water or I should take more carbon dioxide to make more food. So this kind of, fighting starts within the plant. And the second is actually photosystem process. We define it using carbon dioxide fixation, photosynthetic efficiency. I will explain all these terms, yield and FV. So actually these two things tells us about efficiency of making food under a given sunlight. And it also tells us that actually not all the sunlight can be used to make food. Only some part of the sunlight is used to make food. And it tells us about efficiency of the plant to make food under a given condition. Now, for example, if you think from human point of view, it's very similar. If we have a problem in our stomach or digestion, it also affects our other functioning of other organs. Similarly, in plant, if you give stress to stomata, like you put less water in the soil, you also give stress to plant in terms of making food. So its efficiency to make food will also reduce if plants have less water in the soil. That's very similar to human being. Okay, so if we drink less water, it also affects our digestion. Okay, because our water is needed for functioning of organs. Similarly, in plants also, this kind of functions are there. That if you give less sunlight or if you give less water, you give any kind of stress, their efficiency to make food will also reduce. So photosynthetic process means photosynthesis is mainly to make food, right? And that's a very simple way to understand. Now, if you look at this, so these are electron transfer mechanism. So under presence of sunlight, the electrons get excited and they transfer from one place to another to produce this sodium diphosphate, NADPH. Okay, I mean, this is more into biology, but we don't have to go through that. The main thing is these terms I will explain still one by one, but overall I have given you idea is that we need to understand the metabolic processes within the plant and how it's related to soil suction, which is more close to our engineering. That's the whole thing we try to understand here. So this is something I generated using AI, but to give you a very simple analogy so that we can understand carbon dioxide fixation rate, this part. So maximum carbon dioxide fixation rate can be, if you want to understand, it's like the top speed for making food of the plant. The maximum speed is just like the maximum speed at which your car can drive, right? And the light curve is how plant food making speed, or you can say its efficiency of making food, changes under sunlight or water. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So one is carbon dioxide fixation, maximum one is the maximum speed at which you make food or maximum efficiency. And then you have yield, which means how much your efficiency change with respect to, and these measurements are done using photosynthetic active radiation, which is specific sunlight used for photosynthesis. And there's also one more parameter we measure, which is F naught by FM, which is similar FEM by FM, maximum yield. This is like a health score of a plant or of a team, okay, which gives us maximum efficiency. Now, before any workers start working, okay, we can say that this worker all these workers, they can work for 8 hours in a day maximum. So that's their efficiency. So before they start working, this is their efficiency. That's a kind of ideal efficiency, maximum yield. So that's maximum yield means the maximum food which plant can make before it start actually working. Okay, induction curve is it's also it's more realistic curve, means when plants start working, how long it takes, okay, to wake up and reach the maximum, amount of the food they make. So in what time they can make the food very fast. So that's called induction curve when they start making food. And effective yield is a real-time efficiency score, means it will give you real-time efficiency of plants making food. So it means this is very important for us, because when we look at plant wilting point, actually in previous literature, the focus was mainly to measure this one, okay, because they think wilting point should be related to root water uptake or transpiration rate, which is directly related to stomatal. But most of the literature, they miss this point. And also they miss how soil suction changes with these metabolic processes. Now, 3 things are there. One is the stomatal conductance, the rate at which they are losing water to atmosphere or taking carbon dioxide and light. And then this carbon dioxide and light, they have to use it to make food. So we need to not only check how much carbon dioxide and light is coming inside, but we also need to check how the food making process is going on. Is it efficient or not efficient? Because through these processes, we can check at which point or at what soil water content the metabolic process start to degrade very fast. Now, it's very similar to when, I mean, unfortunately, if there is if somebody is a patient in hospital, the doctor have to check regularly blood pressure, heartbeat, oxygen, right? It's similar to checking those kind of parameters for plant, because doctor have to make sure there is no critical point, and they have to ensure, like if the patient is admitted in hospital for at least 5 days, 6 days, whatever, they have to ensure that these critical processes, which are measured through, blood pressure, heartbeat, oxygen, at least these parameters are within the range during the time when they are admitted to hospital. So they continuously monitor this point. So similarly for plant also, we need to continuously monitor their health parameters, I would say, in simple terms, along with soil parameters. So this was, as far as I understand, this was not done before, because there was a lack of collaboration between unsaturated soil mechanics or geotechnical engineering and also plant physiology. So we did these experiments and we have to, of course, quantify. I mean, first we did this experiment under a controlled condition, not really well controlled, but under a greenhouse where we designed 1D columns along with soil and vegetation. And we use soil suction sensors and moisture sensor. We have to quantify water characteristic curve. At the same time, we have to quantify plant parameters, health parameters. Okay. And we took two types of soil for this. So soil type is also very important, as we know that the what retention capacity is different in two soils. So one we took more clay kind of soil, another we took more silty sand. So first we try to establish the plant parameters, like the carbon dioxide fixation rate. If you look at the maximum carbon dioxide fixation rate is given here. So you can see that it's increasing with time, right? So the more sunlight you are adding, so PAR is basically sunlight. So when you're giving more sunlight, it's increasing. So it's becoming constant at this point. So it means even though you keep increasing sunlight, there is no further increase in the speed of the car. So as I told you before, it's like a speed of making food, right? Your speed of making food remains same. Irrespective, beyond a certain extent, you increase your sunlight. Now this is because beyond a certain extent, the plant do not want to make more food or increase its speed because there is also limits of carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so this is the maximum speed at which plant can make food. Now this is the effective yield. If you remember, this is a real-time efficiency of making food. So you can see that this real-time efficiency, it increased a bit and then became more or less constant. So it's around 0.4. Maximum yield is the maximum score of the workers or efficiency of workers before they start to work, if you remember. So it means it was 0.8, it dropped to almost half. So it means when the worker actually start to work, when the plants start to work in real condition, like in normal moisture content in real time and also real time sunlight, what we found is that the efficiency actually became 50%. So this is very interesting. It's similar to human beings, ideal, like a robot can work 24 hours a day, but when human tries to work, their capacity will reduce with time because we get more tired. Similarly, plants also have this tendency like this. Now we capture this variation of parameters like photosynthetic efficiency, maximum carbon dioxide fixation, maximum yield, and effective yield. So let's focus on effective yield. This is actually the more realistic efficiency of making food. And we can also focus on this one, photosynthetic efficiency, okay? So you can see that, so all these points measurement we took at different times. Now there is one limitation in this measurements is that we cannot have continuous measurements for them. And we have to take this measurement on every leaf. Not all the leaves we can take, but every leaf. And we have to make it in equilibrium before we capture this point. So we cannot have a continuous measurement like every 5 minutes or 10 minutes because there will not be a big change anyway in every 5 or 10 minutes. It depends on how the soil suction change. And then it takes also time for plant to respond. So there are, you can say, a little bit scattered measurements, but overall the trend is going down, okay, which is expected, right? It will go down. Now there are two types of soil. So if you look at here, so one is clay loam, the red one, and the one is in the blue one is the silty sand. So in silty sand, if you look, the drop is much earlier than in the clay loam. Now, this can be understood also from porosity point of view. The silty sand have less ability to hold water in the drier condition compared to clay loam. So in clay soil, the water retention at higher suction will remain, will be higher than silty sand. So there will be more water in clay at higher suction. So the plants can still take some water from the clay. But in the silty sand, the drop will be much faster and it will not be enough water for plants to take. So that's why in silty sand, you can see the efficiency drop much faster. It's just like as a human being, if we go to a desert, okay, or if we go to an area where there is enough humidity, we may feel more thirsty in desert very fast because it's very dry. Okay, and our efficiency will reduce very fast when we walk in the desert. But if we walk in the humid atmosphere where there is enough moisture in the air, we may not feel thirsty very fast. Okay, of course it will also depend on the temperature, but just to give you an analogy, that the behavior of plants are actually very similar to human beings. The way we regulate our body inside, they also regulate with respect to soil. So these are all soil suction, okay? So if we go to the right side, it means we are making soil more dry. And when we look at effective yield, as it's a real-time efficiency of making food, you can see that it dropped very fast here, and this one dropped for clay loam. Okay, so you can see for clay loam, actually the suction is around 1600 kilopascal, but for the silty sand, it's around 270 kilopascal. We also compared, we also took images, which was very important to capture at different soil suction, how their leaf color change. So you can see for the clay loam, the leaf color tends to become yellow almost at 300 kilopascal, but for the silty sand, this yellowish color even at 20 kilopascal start coming, because actually from water characteristics, the air entry value is very low for the silty sand. You can think from that angle also that the water drops very fast in the soil, and then the plant tends to regulate its stomatal conduction, stomatal function, to reduce the intake of carbon dioxide, to reduce the loss of water. So the formation of food becomes very less. And food also gives chlorophyll. You remember, the chlorophyll is useful for the green color of the plant. The chlorophyll pigment actually comes from photosynthesis. So that chlorophyll drops. So you can see for the silty sand at 300 kilopascal, it almost wilts completely. So that's very important to capture. Now, for engineering point of view, why it's important, because when we have to design or decide for which plant species we have to use on man-made slope in a certain climatic condition, okay, we have to also understand that we cannot choose plants based on higher survival rate or loss. We have to also look at the climate condition in that region. Okay, if it's we need to see how long the dry season could be, or how higher the suctions could be in that particular soil in that season, in that region. And then we need to decide about the plant. So we need to capture this. We also need to, as an engineer, we also need to have basic understanding of climate and also about the soil type and soil suction in that region, which is expected. And based on that, we need to decide which plants can be more useful. So, I mean, for that, it needs a long process, especially we may need to do field experiments for that in future to verify this. And we summarize all these measurements into 3 zones. So we actually choose the wet zone first. We call it boundary effect zone. And when you go down, we are actually following the drying mode. So we compare these 6 parameters, okay, for comparison purpose, between clay loam columns and also silty sand columns. Okay, so these numbers. I'm not going through details of these numbers, but I give you overall idea. It's like a health chart, of a plant and the soil. In simple terms, I mean, if as a doctor, they also have a health chart, with all the parameters and all the similar to that thing. And we also compare we estimated we can call it wilting point, or we can also call it a threshold point. I mean, I don't need to call it wilting point because we can never govern as is exactly what point the plant will die. Actually, this is a very vague term in reality. We can only say at what point the health condition of the plant will tend to deteriorate quite rapidly. That's very important, that point, because that is the critical point where we need to take action to protect plant from dying, right? Similar, like human beings, doctors have to take action at critical points. So we found that these critical points for silty sand is much lower, to 60 kPa, kilopascal, and for clay loam is much higher, around 1600 kilopascal. And this is the previous one in 1978 and also in 28. The one they use is 1500 kilopascal during that time. It's a fixed number, irrespective of soil type or anything. So they assume that at this point, the plant will wilt, okay? And this actually number have been used also in some of the researchers in geoenvironmental engineering, especially when they do seepage analysis of root water uptake. They actually use this number to model it also in GeoStudio or in Hydrus. And we try to understand the process also through root characteristics in clay loam and silty sand. And we find a lot of fine root hair formation in silty sand to allow more water uptake, and also in clay. In clay, the problem is the water is there, but it's held very strongly by clay. You don't want to release water to plant so easily. So plant need to do more hard work in clay to get more water also. But in sand, the funny thing is the water is already less. You also characterize the root distribution and also leaf area index in different for clay and the silty sand. So this, in conclusion, this is a kind of when we published, this was the first experimental evidence. We can say to prove that 1500 kilopascal cannot be used as reference for wilting point. Especially, it depends a lot on the type of plants and the type of soil. And we establish a framework where we can combine principles of unsaturated soil mechanics along with plant metabolic processes. We capture their two processes together to understand or deduce this threshold points. And we also have other studies, which I think I showed you before. We did some drone monitoring on our green infrastructure and also simultaneously measured soil suction and other parameters, soil parameters. To capture, actually, we were capturing in green infrastructure how tree infestation from termites, how it affect, and also the radiation from the sun. So we captured actually this trend before and after infestation. We don't know when infestation occurs. We can only see the, it's not, we cannot say when the stomach will get upset. We can only get the symptoms. So after the symptoms, we can say our stomach is upset. But that's the only thing in tree infestation also. We can only see it, like it has infested already. We cannot see when it has started infestation. So we can see that the canopy area reduced quite drastically. We also have measurements of soil suction, which also tends to show similar trend just after this canopy area reduction. So but I'm not going through detail. We can get through this publication also. I have one PhD student position available in, but it's almost going to be filled. But if somebody is interested to apply for future PhD positions, you can apply. As I said, the degree will be always awarded from Liverpool University. The standards and everything have to be followed according to Liverpool University. And there's a co-supervisor also from Liverpool University for every master and PhD student topics. Like this here, so I have a co-supervisor from Liverpool University and also in Nanjing University. Yeah, one more announcement. This is under process right now. Yeah, hopefully it will be approved soon. So I'm forming a new Asian Technical Committee on Biogeotechnics. I will be very happy to, maybe if it gets approved, we will be very happy to organize some events. And also, I think, take help of Professor Krishna Reddy, sir, because sir has been, the pioneer in these topics in sustainable geotechnical engineering. So I will be very happy to have you, your suggestions or ideas in future, and we can do some more activities. Yeah. With this, I would like to conclude. I hope I did not take a long time. So that's it. We can have a discussion. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Professor Ankit.